My husband and I have been married for 4 years, together for 7. I'm 33F, and he's 35M. We've been scrimping and saving for a house down payment ever since we got married. 3 years of grinding and sacrifice. No vacations, driving beat-up cars, meal prepping every week, skipping nights out with friends. All to build our future. We even stayed in our cramped one-bedroom rental longer than we wanted, watching our friends go on fancy vacations while we stayed home. None of that was fun, but we kept telling ourselves it would be worth it when we finally had a home of our own. We tracked every deposit and celebrated each small milestone. We managed to save up about $52,000 in our joint house fund account. Our goal was around $80,000 for a down payment on a modest starter home. We were over halfway there, and I was so proud of us. That is, until yesterday. We're starting the mortgage pre-approval process, so I went to double-check our savings and paperwork. I logged into the joint account expecting to see around $52,000 and growing, but the number on the screen was much lower. At first I honestly thought I was looking at the wrong account, or the bank messed up. I refreshed the page like 5 times, even downloaded the transaction history to figure out what happened. Sure enough, there were multiple transfers out over the last 6 months, totaling about $15,000 gone. Each transfer had a vague label like utilities, groceries, or car repair. But they definitely weren't our utilities or groceries. We each deposit $800 a month automatically into this fund, and we hadn't withdrawn a cent otherwise, so I was freaking out. My initial thought was fraud or some bank error. I was about to call the bank's customer service, but as I looked closer at the transaction details, something felt off. The payments all went to the same external account. The description labels looked deliberately generic, almost like someone was trying to hide what the transfers were for. I copied the account number and did a little cross-referencing. And that's when it hit me all at once. I recognized the account name. It's my brother-in-law Jake's account. I remembered it from 2 years ago when we transferred him some birthday money. My husband had me send it. I felt a cold wave of realization. This wasn't the bank's fault at all. It was my husband. He had been funneling our house savings to his younger brother Jake, 30M, behind my back. And he'd been doing it methodically for months, disguising the payments under innocuous names so I wouldn't notice. I was so angry and in disbelief. I double and triple-checked everything. The transfer started about 6 months ago. First one was $500 labeled utilities. Then a few weeks later, another $500 as groceries. Then $1,000 for car repair. In the last couple of months it ramped up. I saw a $2,000 transfer, and even a $3,000 one all at once. Altogether, roughly $15,000 of our hard-earned house money had quietly vanished into Jake's hands. By the time I pieced this together, I was livid and heartbroken. I didn't confront my husband via text or phone. I wanted to see his face when he tried to explain this. So I waited until he got home from work, which felt like an eternity. I was literally sitting on the couch with the printed bank statements next to me, just seething. The moment he walked in, I came straight out with it. "Do you know why there's $15,000 missing from our house account?" My voice was surprisingly calm, but I was fuming inside. He looked completely caught off guard and mumbled something like, "What do you mean, missing?" I shoved the printed transaction list at him. He skimmed it and went pale. Then, instead of immediately apologizing or coming clean, he denied it. He stammered, "There must be a mistake or something. Maybe you misremembered the total?" I wasn't having that. I pointed to Jake's name on the statements and said, "Explain this. Why is your brother basically on our payroll?" At that, his whole demeanor changed. First he tried to deflect. He said I shouldn't be micromanaging the accounts and that he was going to tell me at the right time. Yeah, sure. I called BS immediately. I said, "We both put our paychecks into this for our future. How could you secretly take out money for something else, let alone for Jake?" He got defensive and actually raised his voice as if I was the one in the wrong for checking the account. He said, "You don't understand, okay? You're an only child. You wouldn't get it." Which, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Then he started going on about how Jake lost his job 8 months ago and was going to be homeless if he didn't help. Apparently Jake had been struggling to pay rent and bills in his expensive city, and my husband felt obligated to step in because family comes first. I was floored. I said, "Family first? What about our family? What about the home we're trying to build for us? You had no right to do this behind my back." He kept making excuses, saying Jake had nobody else, and if he hadn't sent money, Jake would have been out on the street. He added, Look, I've been working overtime, so it's not like we can't replace that money. We can just delay buying the house maybe another year. As if that made it okay to wipe out a year of savings. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I yelled that we both agreed on our financial goals and budget, and he unilaterally decided to throw a huge chunk at his brother without even talking to me. I asked if he had any idea how betrayed I felt. Then he had the nerve to act offended and accuse me of overreacting, saying, "It's not like the money's gone forever, we'll earn it back." That just made me see red. Things got really heated. I admit I lost my cool and screamed something like, "It is gone if your leech of a brother never pays it back. We've sacrificed so much to save that money, and you just gave it away to someone who blows it on who knows what." He snapped back that I was being insensitive and said Jake isn't a leech, he's just in a rough spot. You'd help your family too if you had one. Oof. Low blow because I have no siblings. At that point I was done. I was so disgusted and hurt that I just grabbed an overnight bag and told him I'm going to my best friends for now. He was stunned and followed me to the door, saying I'm making this a bigger deal than it needs to be, and we can work it out if I just calm down and talk. I told him I have nothing more to say right now. He's the one who should be thinking about what he's done, and I drove off. So here I am at my friend's place, typing this out because I genuinely don't know what to do next. I feel so betrayed. This wasn't a small slip or a one-time lie. It was 6 months of ongoing deception that set our dreams back by at least a year. We were so close to finally getting a house. And what kills me is that he doesn't even seem sorry. He was more upset that I caught him and made a scene than about the fact that he lied and stole from our future. I haven't spoken to him since I left. He's texted a couple times saying we need to talk, but I've been too angry to respond. I can't face him right now. I'm honestly debating whether this is something I can get past, or if it's a total deal breaker for our marriage. I never thought I'd be considering divorce over money, but it's not really about the money. It's about trust and respect, which feel completely gone. Any advice on how to handle this would be appreciated. How do I even begin to move forward from such a betrayal? Update 1 to 3 days later. It's been 3 days since the blow-up with my husband over the missing money, and I still haven't been back home. I've been crashing at my best friend's apartment, but honestly I barely slept the first 2 nights. I'm just so angry and hurt. My husband has been texting and calling nonstop, mostly apologies and please can we talk, but I wasn't ready to deal with him. Yesterday, he actually showed up unannounced at my friend's place with a bouquet of my favorite lilies, like that would magically fix this. My friend answered the door and was ready to rip into him, but I agreed to come outside and talk on the doorstep, against my better judgment. He looked exhausted and immediately started apologizing, saying he was sorry for lying and that he thought he was doing the right thing at the time. I let him talk, but I was pretty cold. I basically told him a bunch of flowers isn't going to make me forgive the fact that he stole from our future. He kept begging me to come home, so we could work this out. I told him I need more time and space because I still can't trust him right now. I did take the flowers, mostly because my friend loves lilies and I wasn't about to let them go to waste, but I sent him on his way. I refused to have a big emotional scene on my friend's doorstep. One thing I did the first day after leaving was call my mother-in-law his mom. We're pretty close, and I needed to understand what the hell Jake's situation really is. My husband kept saying Jake had nobody else, which didn't make sense because his parents are very much around and semi-retired with comfortable finances. Well, turns out my MIL was just as shocked as I was to learn about the money transfers. She had no idea her older son was secretly funneling our house savings to her younger son, and she was livid when I told her the details. She basically said, "I love both my boys, but this is not okay. He never should have done that, especially not behind your back." I also learned some more disturbing info about Jake. According to my MIL, Jake has been turning down job offers. Apparently through a family friend he got offered 2 different jobs in the last few months, and he rejected both because he felt they were beneath him or the pay wasn't good enough. Mind you, he's been unemployed for 8 months now. My MIL also said Jake refuses to move out of his pricey apartment with sky-high rent because he likes the area and is convinced he'll get a high-paying job soon. Basically, he's burning through money and won't downsize his lifestyle. What really made my blood boil was hearing that Jake has been bragging to some of their cousins about how my husband has his back financially. Emile heard from her niece that Jake was at a family barbecue last month, joking that he doesn't have to worry about money because his big brother will always bail him out. The entitlement is unreal. And get this, while we've been eating ramen and pinching pennies to save for a house, Jake went out and bought himself a brand new gaming console and a bunch of games last month. That was easily $1,000 blown on fun stuff. So the money my husband sent him, that we sacrificed to save, basically funded Jake's hobbies and let him be picky about jobs. I saw red all over again when I heard that. After getting all this info, I was even more furious with both my husband and Jake. My Emile was furious too and apologized to me repeatedly, even though none of this was her doing. She said she'd be having a serious talk with both of her sons, and that she understands completely why I'm beyond upset. At least she's in my corner on this. Anyway, this afternoon I finally agreed to meet my husband in person to have a serious talk. I told him to meet me at our apartment. I didn't want to have a confrontation at my friend's place. I was expecting just him and me. Maybe we could finally have a real conversation about where to go from here. But guess who was sitting on my couch when I arrived? Jake. Apparently my husband, in all his wisdom, thought it would be a great idea to have Jake there so we could all talk it out. I almost walked right out as soon as I saw his brother's smug face in my living room. But I stayed, thinking maybe Jake was actually there to apologize or offer to pay back some of the money. Spoiler, he wasn't. The moment I stepped in, Jake let out this snide little chuckle and said something like, "Look who finally decided to show up." All this over a bit of money. I could not believe the audacity. I told him this was between me and my husband, and he had no business being there. He shot back with a smirk, calling me a bimbo who's throwing a fit over money. Yes, he really said that. He basically called me a gold digger in my own home, when he's the one freeloading off us. I looked at my husband, expecting him to blow up on Jake for talking to me like that. But my husband just sat there, eyes on the floor, saying nothing. He mumbled, "Come on, Jake, don't," under his breath, but that was it. No real defense of me. I was absolutely done at that point. I told Jake to get the hell out of my house and told my husband, "You'd better go with him." I said I can't even look at either of them right now. My husband started to protest, but I was already turning around and walking back out. I left them both there and slammed the door behind me. I was absolutely livid by the time I got to my car. I sat in the driver's seat and just screamed at the top of my lungs for a minute to let it out. Then I drove straight back to my friend's place. When I walked back into my friend's apartment, I must have looked enraged and shaky because she immediately asked what happened. I gave her the rundown, and she was just as furious as I was. She called my husband a few choice words I won't repeat here, and suggested we drive by and slash his brother's tires, half joking, I think. Honestly, having her in my corner made me feel a little better in that moment. She told me I can stay with her as long as I need, and that I shouldn't feel pressured to forgive him. I'm so grateful to have a friend like her right now. I've since told my husband not to come back to the apartment tonight. In fact, I told him maybe he should just go stay with Jake if he's so intent on playing savior to a grown man. I don't think he ended up doing that. I suspect he went to crash at his parents' house after I kicked him out. My Emile texted me later checking on me, and she hinted that my husband showed up at their place distraught. Good. Let him feel distraught. I have zero sympathy right now. At this point, I'm strongly considering a formal separation. I haven't contacted a lawyer yet, but I'm very close. This situation is so far beyond the pale. My husband betrayed my trust, gave away our savings, and then couldn't even defend me when his mooch of a brother insulted me to my face. If he can't stand up to Jake now, I don't see how anything will ever change. I love my husband, or at least I did before all this, but I'm not going to set myself on fire to keep his brother warm. I'm going to take a few days to cool off before making any big decisions, but unless my husband has some kind of miraculous wake-up call, I just don't know how we can come back from this. Honestly, I'm preparing myself for the possibility that this marriage might be over. Update 2 to 1 week later. A week has passed since my last update, and things have been eventful. I'm still at my friend's place. After that disaster of a meeting where Jake insulted me and my husband didn't defend me, I really needed the space. My husband has been desperate to talk more. He even showed up again at my friend's apartment a couple days after update 1. Apparently he still doesn't grasp give me space. This time he brought a box of my favorite chocolates, because he knows I crave them when I'm upset. I did accept the chocolates. I mean, I'm mad, but I'm not going to turn down good chocolate. However, I told him flat out it doesn't change anything. We talked on the sidewalk outside my friend's building. To his credit, he seemed genuinely remorseful this time, eyes red and everything. He apologized over and over, calling himself an idiot and saying he's on my side, not Jake's. He even said he would cut Jake off completely, No more money, no more playing savior. If I'd just come home and give him a chance to make things right. I listened, and I told him I'm willing to consider working on our marriage, but I needed to know exactly how he planned to make things right. Like, it's easy to say I'll fix it, but I wanted concrete steps. How would he rebuild my trust? How would he restore our savings? What's the plan to ensure this never happens again? Well, he didn't have a real answer. He sort of stammered something like, I don't know yet, but I swear I'll figure it out. I'll do whatever it takes. That wasn't good enough for me. I told him point blank I'm not coming back, just because he feels bad now. He needs to come up with actual solutions and show me he's capable of putting me and our marriage first. He looked crushed when I said that, but I had to be firm. I did agree to at least keep talking. I haven't filed anything legal yet. Part of me still hopes there's a way to salvage this if he truly changes. The next big development, my MIL organized a family intervention for Jake a few days ago. She wanted all of us on a call or in a room to confront the situation together. I really have to hand it to her. She's been pretty awesome through this. She basically tore my husband a new one for betraying me, and now she was gearing up to do the same with Jake. I was invited to join as well. I wasn't thrilled to see or talk to Jake again, but I joined via video call to support my husband and MIL. So it was my MIL, my husband Jake, in person at MIL's house, and me on Skype. As soon as Jake realized this was basically an ambush about his behavior, he got all defensive and whiny. He said stuff like, I can't believe you're all ganging up on me. I'm doing my best here, which almost made me throw my phone. He kept insisting he was about to get a great job, any day now, and that we were overreacting by making a big deal out of a temporary rough patch. My MIL did not let him off the hook. She laid into him, asking why he turned down the job offers that family friends helped line up. He tried to claim those jobs weren't in my field and would barely cover my rent, so what's the point? That made my husband finally speak up to call that out as a ridiculous excuse. Plenty of people take interim jobs to pay the bills. Jake just rolled his eyes and said we didn't understand because he has standards. Yes, he actually said that. When the money issue came up, Jake started crying about how he was going to be evicted, and my husband was the only one who cared. He said, if my own brother didn't help me, I'd be homeless on the street. Is that what you all wanted? Should I have been living in a shelter instead? Thanks for the support, family. Real manipulative, guilt-trippy stuff. My MIL snapped that he wouldn't be in that position if he hadn't been living way above his means with no emergency fund. She also brought up the fact that he has a trust fund from his grandparents that he hasn't touched. Bit of background. Years ago, both my husband and Jake were given small trust funds by their grandparents to be accessed as adults. My husband used his $50,000 fund for college and our wedding. Jake, however, never touched his. He still has most of it sitting untouched because he never went to college and has always said he's saving it for something big. We all knew about this money, but Jake always referred to it as emergency use only. My MIL basically yelled, Jake, if this isn't an emergency, what the hell is? You had resources to help yourself and chose not to use them, expecting your brother to carry you instead. That's incredibly irresponsible and selfish. I wanted to applaud her at that moment. Jake's response was to play victim even harder. He said the trust money was supposed to be for buying a house one day or for a real emergency like medical. He also tried to spin it that using that money would have been disrespectful to our grandparents' wishes, which is BS. They left it to help him have a good life. Essentially, he refused to take accountability. He even had the gall to say to my husband, I didn't ask you to give me your savings, bro. You offered. If it's causing problems, that's on you too, not me. I saw my husband's face just fall when Jake said that. I think that might have been the first crack in his blind loyalty, hearing how little gratitude Jake actually had. By the end of that intervention, it was clear Jake wasn't going to apologize or change overnight. My MIL told him he needs therapy and to get his act together, and that the bank of Big Brother is closed. He basically sulked in silence after that. I mostly stayed quiet on the call, but I did speak up once to say, Jake, you realize you basically stole from me, right? Half that money was mine. You're 30, time to grow up and take responsibility. He just kind of glared at the camera and then looked away. Whatever. After that mess, I had another serious talk with my husband, just the two of us, on the phone later that night. I told him I have some non-negotiable conditions if there's any hope for our marriage. I laid it out clearly. Full financial transparency going forward. No more secret accounts, no large transactions without both of us agreeing. I want access to an oversight of all our finances, period. Jake must pay back every cent he took, approximately $15,000, within a reasonable time frame. I suggested within 1 year. I don't care if it's $100 a week. I want it in writing that he will return that money to our house fund eventually. Marriage counseling. I told him we absolutely need professional help to rebuild trust. He agreed we'd start couples therapy ASAP. Honestly, I think he needs individual therapy too to untangle himself from Jake, but one step at a time. No more financial help to Jake, ever. I made it crystal clear that if I even suspect a single dollar is being sneaked to Jake or any other sketchy financial lie, I am gone. Zero tolerance from here on. I delivered these terms as calmly but firmly as I could. My husband listened and said he understood why I was drawing hard lines. He agreed to most of it right away. Full transparency, counseling, and no more giving Jake money. But when it came to Jake paying us back, he hesitated. He said, "You know Jake has nothing right now. You can't squeeze blood from a stone. How's he supposed to pay us back when he can't even pay his own rent?" I told him that's not my problem. Jake can figure it out, even if it takes years. It's the principle. He effectively stole from us, and I'm not just letting that go. My husband looked really torn and kept trying to get me to compromise on that. He offered that he would personally replenish the $15,000 by working extra hours or a second job, instead of demanding Jake do it, since Jake is in such a fragile place. He was still making excuses for his brother, worrying that if we press Jake too hard he'll spiral, or something. I was disappointed, to put it mildly, that my husband was still coddling Jake even after all this. I told him, "It's not harsh to expect an adult who took our money to pay it back. That's called consequences." We kind of hit a wall on that point. In the end, I said, "Fine, you replace the money then. But I still want it noted that Jake owes you that $15,000. I refused to pretend this never happened. He agreed he'd talk to Jake about formally acknowledging the debt, even if Jake can't pay it now. The conversation was tense, but at least we got it all out. I could tell my husband is trying, but he's so deeply used to protecting Jake that it's like deprogramming someone from a cult. He did say he'll start picking up overtime, and maybe a side gig to begin putting money back into our house fund immediately. And he actually found a marriage counselor for us, and scheduled an appointment for next week. So, that's something, I guess. On the financial front, we've essentially lost our chance at the particular house we were eyeing. We had seen a cute starter home come on the market right before this blew up. We were so excited and already talking about scheduling a viewing because it checked all our boxes. Nothing fancy, but it had a little yard, a decent kitchen, etc. But with our down payment gutted by this mess and all the family drama, we obviously missed out. The house went under contract with another buyer a few days ago. To make matters worse, home prices in our area have been creeping up, like an 8% increase this year. That means our original savings goal might not even be enough anymore. We probably need to save for an extra year or two to catch up, all because of this fiasco. It's infuriating, honestly. So right now, here's where things stand. I haven't moved back home yet. I told my husband I'll consider coming back after we get through our first few counseling sessions, and only once I see consistent effort from him. I'm still very guarded, but I'm cautiously willing to see if he follows through. To his credit, he has been keeping me in the loop on his finances daily. He even voluntarily shared his credit card statements to prove he's not sneaking money to Jake. That transparency is a good start. I'm still angry about everything, especially the fact that he's dragging his feet on truly holding Jake accountable. He does finally seem to be prioritizing our marriage now, but talk is cheap. I'm remaining cautious and keeping my guard up. We'll see if his actions back up his promises. I'll update again when there's more to report. Update 3 to 2 weeks later. It's been about 2 weeks since my last update, and some major truths have come out. I honestly didn't expect things to get more shocking, but here we are. First, the other shoe dropped regarding Jake. Through the family grapevine and some digging by my MIL, we discovered the real story behind Jake's job loss and financial mess. It turns out Jake wasn't simply laid off or a victim of the economy. He was fired for theft. Yep, he'd been stealing from his previous employer, apparently skimming equipment from the warehouse and selling it online, and they caught him. They didn't press charges, the company just quietly terminated him, but obviously that made him basically unhireable in his field once word got around. This came to light because one of my MIL's friends has a son who worked with Jake and filled us in after hearing about the family drama. On top of that, we learned Jake has a serious gambling problem. Apparently he's racked up debt with several people. A cousin confided to my MIL that Jake borrowed money from her a while back and never paid it back, claiming it was for rent, but she later found out it was because he lost a bunch gambling online. He also owes a couple old friends money for similar reasons. So the picture is clear now. Jake isn't just an irresponsible mooch. He's got deeper issues, theft, gambling, that he's been hiding. All that money my husband sent him likely went into a black hole of gambling losses or covering those debts, not just keeping a roof over his head, like my husband thought. When my husband and I found out all this, it was like a slap in the face for him. I think it finally shattered the pedestal he'd put Jake on. My husband had this image of his little brother as someone who just hit a streak of bad luck and needed a leg up. Now he was confronted with the fact that Jake has been lying, stealing, and digging his own hole for a long time. My husband reached a breaking point after these revelations. One evening he came over to talk. We've been meeting up periodically for counseling and discussions, and he just broke down. I mean, full-on ugly crying. I've never seen him like that before. He kept saying how sorry he was, not just to me but in general. It all poured out of him. How he's been covering for Jake's messes since they were teenagers. How he felt it was his responsibility as the older brother because their dad wasn't around much when they were growing up. He told me things I never knew. Like when Jake got caught shoplifting in high school, my husband took the blame so Jake wouldn't get in trouble. Or how he quietly paid off a credit card bill Jake had defaulted on a few years ago, using part of his own savings. I just listened, honestly stunned, as he unloaded decades of this stuff. He admitted that he's known for a while that Jake had serious problems, that losing jobs or needing money wasn't a new pattern. But my husband was in deep denial about how bad it really was. He said he was terrified that if he didn't help, Jake would end up on the streets or worse, and he'd never forgive himself. In his mind, he truly thought he was saving Jake, and that as soon as Jake got back on his feet, everything would be paid back and fine. He finally acknowledged how naive and wrong that was. It was an intense conversation. I just let him pour it all out while I listened. I didn't rush to comfort him or anything. I stayed in my seat and heard him out. When he finally calmed down a bit, I told him I appreciated his honesty. I also told him that while I understand things better now, like why he felt so obligated to help Jake, it doesn't excuse what he did to me. He agreed completely. He said he's ashamed of himself and that I didn't deserve any of this. After a lot of talking and a lot of tissues, we mutually agreed that we both need to work on ourselves before we can really fix our marriage. So we've decided to go through a trial separation for the time being. To be fair, we were already living apart since I left, but now it's more official. He's going to continue staying at his parents' house for the next few months, and I'm back living in our apartment on my own. We even informed our landlord and close family that we're temporarily separated, so everyone knows the situation. It sounds sad, but honestly I think it's necessary. We also agreed to focus on individual therapy for now, before doing more joint sessions. We did have a couple of marriage counseling sessions in the past 2 weeks. In fact, the counselor suggested my husband see someone one-on-one about his codependency with Jake, and that I see someone for the betrayal trauma before we continue with couples therapy together. My husband already found an individual therapist who specializes in family enmeshment and started going. I've got my own therapist as well. We're both committed to working on our personal issues, which I take as a hopeful sign. On the financial side, I immediately took steps to protect myself. We decided to freeze our joint accounts for now, meaning neither of us can take out big sums without the other's approval. I also moved the remaining house fund money into a new account that requires both our signatures for any withdrawal. My husband was completely fine with that. In fact, he encouraged it to help rebuild trust. He also set up a strict personal budget for himself, so he can start paying that $15,000 back into our house fund. We sat down together and crunched the numbers. He cut out basically all non-essentials, no eating out, canceled his fund subscriptions, etc. Based on his salary and planned overtime, he can realistically put back around $1,500 a month. At that rate, it'd take about 10 months to replenish the $15,000. He wants to try to do it faster, maybe by picking up side gigs on weekends. I told him that's his choice, the sooner the better, but I'm not going to hold a stopwatch. I just need to see consistent effort. We also drafted a simple written agreement, nothing super formal, just something in writing, where Jake acknowledges that the money was a loan he owes back to my husband and me. Getting Jake to sign it was another saga. My husband had to practically corner him to get a signature. According to my husband, Jake initially flat out refused to sign anything and accused us of treating him like a criminal, to which my husband basically responded that Jake had literally stolen from us. So yeah, they argued for a good while. Jake yelled that we had no right to humiliate him with a loan document. My husband stood firm and said this was non-negotiable if Jake ever wants a shred of trust again. Eventually, Jake gave in and scribbled his signature on the paper, but not without a lot of eye-rolling and muttering. Now we have on paper that Jake owes $15,000 to us. Well, to my husband technically, even if it's just symbolic for now. So that's where things are. Weirdly, despite all the chaos, I feel a bit more clarity now. The truth about Jake is out. My husband finally sees the situation for what it is, and we have a concrete plan to move forward, individually and together eventually. I'm still cautious and I'm not wearing rose-colored glasses here. A lot of damage was done, but I do feel like maybe there's a path to rebuilding if we both put in the work. For now, we're taking it one step at a time. We check in with each other periodically, mostly about therapy progress or finances, but we're giving each other space to heal and grow separately. I have no idea what the future holds, but I'm hopeful we're at least moving in a healthier direction. I'll update again down the line. Update 4 to 1 month later. It's been about a month since the trial separation began, and I have a lot to share. This might be the final big update before things, hopefully, settle down. In the past few weeks, a lot has happened, mostly revolving around Jake hitting rock bottom and the aftermath of that. First off, Jake got arrested. Yes, again. He managed to land a new job, through one of his college buddies, at a small company about a month ago. And true to form, he blew it in spectacular fashion. He was caught stealing computer equipment from their stockroom and trying to sell it. A manager figured it out and set up a sting. They had him arrested on the spot. So Jake ended up spending a night in jail. He actually had the audacity to use his one phone call to ring my husband, begging for help. My husband told him flat out, "No, you're on your own." Then he hung up and immediately called his mom, MIL, to let her know what happened and to insist that none of them bail Jake out either. My MIL agreed. She was fed up too by this point. In the end, Jake had no choice but to finally dip into his precious trust fund to hire himself a lawyer and post bail. The fund he refused to touch ended up bailing him out of jail after all. My MIL told me later that Jake was furious we all abandoned him in his hour of need, but she reminded him that he'd dug his own grave. He's facing real legal consequences now, which honestly is the reality check he desperately needed. From what I hear, his lawyer managed to negotiate so he'll avoid jail time, but Jake now has a criminal record and some serious conditions. He has to attend court-mandated therapy for his gambling/theft issues, and he's doing a ton of community service as part of his probation. Jake is currently living back at his parents' house, because obviously he lost the new job and can't afford his apartment anymore. My MIL and FIL have laid down strict rules for him. He has a curfew, household chores, mandatory therapy sessions. Basically, they're treating him like a teenager on house arrest. He's also finally working a job again, just a low-paying retail gig he hates, but it's part of the deal if he wants to live under their roof. Importantly, everyone is enforcing boundaries with him now. He's not getting any handouts or special treatment, and he is absolutely not allowed to contact me. After the stunt he pulled and the names he called me, I made it clear I never want to hear from him again. My husband told him if he ever harasses me, we will involve the police. So far Jake has stayed away, thank goodness. Now, on to my marriage. Believe it or not, there's actually been a lot of positive progress here. My husband has truly stepped up in the last month. For one, he picked up a part-time second job on top of his regular job. He's been busting his butt every day. During the week he goes to his 9 to 5, then heads straight to a part-time evening gig for a few hours. On weekends, he's doing freelance work. It's basically 60 to 70-hour weeks. I've never seen him work so hard. And as a result, he's already managed to put $5,000 back into our house down payment fund. He lined up a contract gig on weekends, and combined with overtime from his main job, he's funneling almost all our extra income into the fund. We also received an unexpected $5,000 gift from my in-laws. They felt terrible about how everything blew up and wanted to help make it right, so they insisted on contributing to our savings. With that, our house fund is basically back to where it was before this whole fiasco. Actually a little higher now. We're around $55,000 and counting. We formalized some things in writing too. As I mentioned, Jake did sign a promissory note acknowledging the $15K as a debt he owes. I'm not holding my breath on if or when he'll ever actually repay it, but at least it's on record. More importantly, my husband and I drew up a post-nuptial agreement with the help of a lawyer. It outlines how our finances will be handled going forward and protects me in case anything like this ever happens again. Basically, it says each of us is responsible for any debt we incur without the other's consent, and that any significant financial decision, above a certain small amount, must be agreed upon by both in writing. If we were to divorce due to something like this happening again, the post-nup ensures I'd be compensated. Signing that gave me a huge sense of security. My husband was completely on board. He said it's the least he could do after breaking my trust. In terms of our relationship, we've been gradually reconnecting. We both continued with individual therapy through the month, and it's been helping a lot. My husband says he's learning how to set boundaries and not feel responsible for Jake's life choices. He's also been unpacking a lot of childhood stuff about his father's absence, which is probably for the best. I've been working through my anger and betrayal in my own sessions. We started going on low-key dates once a week, like grabbing lunch together or watching a movie at home. Nothing too serious, just trying to rebuild some positive experiences together. I've moved back into our apartment now, and he's begun staying over more frequently as things improve between us. It's been slow and sometimes a bit awkward, but we're taking it day by day. Crucially, my husband has remained completely no contact with Jake outside of whatever minimal family interaction is needed for Jake's legal stuff. And he intends to keep it that way. He told me that aside from basic civility at occasional family gatherings, he's done playing caretaker in Jake's life. I think seeing Jake hit rock bottom and nearly losing our marriage finally knocked some sense into him. As of now, I've decided to give our marriage another chance. We're not sweeping anything under the rug. We both know we have a lot of work ahead to rebuild trust. But the difference in my husband's actions is night and day. He's consistently prioritizing our relationship and our future together in every way. I also laid out one last boundary. If he ever betrays my trust like this again, or if I even suspect he's back to secretly bailing Jake out, I will walk away without a second thought. No more chances. He understood completely and said he has zero intention of screwing up again. So that's where we stand. It's not a perfect fairy tale ending by any means. There's a lot of healing still in progress. But it is a much better place than where we were a couple months ago. We're planning to take a bit more time before diving back into house hunting. There's been enough upheaval for now, but at least that dream is back within reach. We have our house fund restored, a plan in place to protect ourselves, and Jake is finally out of our hair and facing his own consequences. Most importantly, my husband and I are communicating openly and working as a team again. Thank you to everyone who read through this long saga. Writing these updates has been a roller coaster, but it helped me process everything. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. Here's hoping the next time I post, it'll be about us closing on a house, and not another family disaster. Update 5 to 6 months later. Hello again everyone. I figured I'd circle back with one last, for real, update, since about half a year has passed. This will be short and sweet. The big news, we bought a house. It's not the original one we missed out on, but it's even better for us. A few weeks ago, we closed on a cozy 3-bedroom home. We ended up finding a place in our budget that needed a little TLC, but we didn't mind. Standing together in our own kitchen for the first time, after everything we went through, it felt surreal. I might have teared up a bit, happy tears this time. Our marriage is in a really good place now. We stuck with counseling and continued being completely open about everything. Financial transparency is 100% in effect. We both know where every dollar is going, and surprisingly it feels great. The post-nuptial agreement is tucked away in our safe. Hopefully we'll never need to look at it again, but it's there for peace of mind. My husband has truly kept his word. He hasn't given a single cent to Jake, and honestly, after all that happened, I don't think he's even tempted to. He's focused on our life together. I can see how much lighter my husband seems now that he's not burdening himself with Jake's problems. As for Jake, he's, well, living his life. He completed his community service and is still doing therapy, court-ordered. Last I heard, he's working at a new job, stocking shelves at a warehouse, and still living with my in-laws for now. We maintain zero contact. Occasionally my Emil will mention that he's staying out of trouble, which I suppose is good. But other than that, he's not a topic of conversation between my husband and me. We've firmly moved on from his drama. Thanks again to everyone who followed along and offered support. This whole saga was a wild roller coaster, but at least it ended on a positive note. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some moving boxes to unpack in our new house.